What happens when a preacher and a science teacher discuss today's world from a biblical perspective? You're about to find out. This is Beaker and Pulpit Podcast.
One thing I wanted to say, I wanted to give kudos to our producer, Josh.
He's pretty good, right?
Man, he's worked his gluteus maximus off.
He went scientific on
and
that.
He has all 4 of our episodes. I mean, we're up to date now.
He has them posted, edited.
I know.
He's got a lot going on over there behind the camera.
Yeah, he's the man.
And he's got it all figured out. It's pretty impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
I am very impressed.
We're going to ride his coattails to glory. So, welcome back to Beaker and Pulpit Podcast. We've been talking through origins and the creation account in the book of Genesis and comparing that to some scientific theory, popular scientific theory, particularly evolutionary theory. We've kind of just been hitting these touchstones as we go through some of this discussion. And the one thing I wanted us to get into tonight, and I messaged you very early, so you had lots of time to prepare. I mean, what time is it now? Like 8.5 hours ago, you knew about this, so it's probably 8 hours more than you needed. But the thought that I had was, if we're looking at the biological diversity of life, so when we're looking at, last week we talked about the flora and fauna. We talked about the plant life and animal life in the creation account, what that means scientifically. But when we consider the vast diversity of life, both in plant life and in animal life, does that support an intelligent designer, or is there more support than intelligent design? Is there more support for evolutionary theory? So given enough time, and probabilities, if we look at the diversity of life, which is going to be part of your wheelhouse as a biologist. So what do you think? Where do we land on that in terms of origins and source? Does diversity support evolutionary theory? Does diversity support an intelligent designer?
Well, I will say that atheists and agnostics believe in a multiverse because of the great design process that's already been taking place on this earth, and it can't fit and cannot justify their ideologies.
So tell me, let's back up a little bit. Because when you say multiverse, I'm thinking like comic book heroes, right? And that there's these different dimensions, and we exist not only here, but in some other dimension, living some different life. So tell me what multiverse means in the scientific
Well, it's
realm.
just this idea of out in space, it could be a parallel universe, more than one parallel universe, all these different things happening at once. And the reason why non-Christians would believe in stuff like that and would even create things like that is because this earth is being so well designed and created, it doesn't fit their narrative. They can't finally just shove their narrative to work here, so they're going to create other parallel universes in order to justify their ideologies.
So is the idea that there is some other universe or many other universes from which our universe evolved?
Well, it could be partly that. It's just like I said, this is made up. Okay, so, you got to understand. You're dealing with people.
It's theoretical, right?
Yeah, theoretical. It's made up. These people are grasping at straws, trying to justify their ideology of creation because everything is so well designed. Now, let me.
So, what's the ideology that God? There is no God. He's not involved.
Correct.
Okay.
They believe that they basically believe in a godless society, that there wasn't a creator, that we have evolved over the eons of time from some miraculous ooze or slime. Somehow, one single cell was created. It had been a simple cell. And then from that, it multiplied and divided, and then from that came life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain the craziness of that thought.
So in order to get from a single-celled organism to the complexity of life as we know it today, that's what requires those billions of years.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they say anyhow. And they keep stretching it out. From the time I was in school, the earth wasn't this old. But now, I mean, it's like a few more billions of years older than it was when I was going through in the education process. And it's growing. And one of the latest that I ran across today was talking about people are trying to project what's it going to be like in 700,000 years from now. I mean, it's just, I just don't understand that particular mindset, because I don't have that mindset.
You know, sometimes I wonder when you consider the tenets of evolution, the rapid explosion of knowledge that we've experienced, not only in our lifetime, but if we look back just 100 years, if we look back 140 years until today, the incredible expansion of knowledge, the expansion of theoretical things that have now come to fruition.
Yes.
You know, we've talked a lot about Einstein and his theories, right? Those theories that have now developed into like nuclear power, right? I mean, that the growth of knowledge and how rapidly that's happened. If we look at it from an evolutionary mindset, why is it just happening? Right? That's my thought. That if life has been here since for however many millions of years, why is it only in the last 150 years that there's been this explosion of knowledge? Like, what prevented that previously? Whereas if you have a biblical worldview and you take a literal account of creation, well, now, right, the time since, you know, the beginning of man to this explosion of knowledge, it's much more reduced. Right?
Correct.
And so I've had that thought, and I've never really asked that question other than just thinking it to myself. But I'm curious about that. In evolutionary theory, why did it take so long?
Because it's not true. Okay? I mean, that's a simple answer. Evolution is made up. They're trying to make up a reason of why we're here and how we got here without God.
Yeah.
And so they're building upon each other. Oh, this guy came up with this. Oh, I like this idea. This atheist over here came up with this idea. Or they'll steal things from Darwin and twist it and all these things just to make something up that we are here without God.
Yeah.
And that's a humanistic ideology.
Yep.
When you accept Jesus Christ, you don't have to worry about any of that, because in the scriptures it clearly states how we got here,
right,
who created us, why we were created, our purpose for being here, and it's been laid out ever since up to this day. And the Bible has not been proven wrong. And after, 66 authors over, 1,500 years? I mean, I know you know the facts a whole lot better than I do.
Right.
And it all flows together.
Right.
You can't find that anywhere else.
Yeah, so the fact that it's written by multiple authors over 3 continents over the course of 15 to 1,600 years, and that there's not disparity.
Correct.
Right. One of the interesting things in science that I read about frequently is we've made this new discovery, something of ancient times. There's this new archaeological dig, and we found this very complex mathematical system, and so that's revolutionized our thoughts on when we started to understand calculus as humankind. Right. Now we have to back that up hundreds or thousands of years, and then. Oh, we found this, I forget what it was. It was like a Greek machine that accurately predicted sunrise and sunset and lunar cycles, and it was used for navigation. And they find this thing made out of bronze, and they're like, wait a second, this dates back earlier than the Bronze Era.
Yeah.
So, wow, everything we know about human knowledge now has to back up to that point. And it seems like theoretically we've put ourselves in a position to say, well, we're only just now getting smart. Right,
Yeah.
And then with each archaeological discovery, we go, oh, wait, they were pretty smart back then, right? This mathematical concept that seems of higher learning that we have only just started to figure out, somebody else was already working out those algorithms, thousands of years ago.
Actually, I mean, I've heard other biblical commentators and other scientists saying we're actually dumber today than we were a couple thousand years ago. Just because we have these modern day conveniences doesn't make us any smarter. We've just built upon what they already built the foundation of knowledge. And so we just build upon, we take from their foundation of knowledge from, a couple thousand years ago, we're building upon that.
Yeah.
The question that, to me, begs to be asked is, if we didn't have that foundation 2,000 years ago, would we be here today with a present-day technology?
Yeah, there's no way.
No.
I mean, it seems
so we're
like
robbing from the past.
It seems like every year or 18 months, there's the new special on TV that talks about how were the pyramids built, right?
Yeah.
Because knowing what we know about science and technology at that time, it seems like if we only had that same level of science and technology today, you and I or anybody else couldn't build those pyramids.
Correct.
Right? So somehow they did it. We don't know how they did it because with the tools that they had, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So there is some level of genius, right, even then.
But here's to add to that, if you don't mind. The world's largest pyramid is not in Egypt.
Where is it?
It's down south of here.
South America?
The Mayans.
Right.
They built the largest pyramid. It just so happens is about half to 3/4 of it is still buried underground.
Right.
But the foundations are down there, and
Yeah,
they're uncovering that.
Right, and it's interesting because so much is still covered in forest and foliage that as they do flyovers and continue to discover, they're seeing this network and community and culture that was previously thought to have not existed that long ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so just to touch on your thing about design, anybody who's taken biology has studied photosynthesis. And the biggest things is most people take away from photosynthesis is the fact that, plants take in carbon dioxide, they take in water, and they produce oxygen. But they also produce sugar.
Right.
And that sugar is used, we eat plants, so we get that energy. It's all converting sunlight to energy. But the interesting thing is now when you get into cell respiration.
Cells are breathing.
So cell respiration is going to be flipped, just the opposite of photosynthesis. They're going to be taking in oxygen now and the energy, and they're going to produce carbon dioxide and water.
In the plant?
In the plant and in humans.
Okay.
Because we're going to allow the plants to live and grow. Then we go out there and let's say we're going to eat broccoli. All right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite vegetable?
Well,
green beans?
No, sir. So I'm vegetable free.
Oh, man.
I choose to be veggie free.
Oh, poor guy.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a carnivore.
Okay. Well,
do French fries count?
It's a potato. It's from a plant. Okay.
All right.
So we'll use that. So the potato plant had to produce photosynthesis. The potato itself is full of sugar or energy. It's full of carbs.
Right.
So you eat it, and it gives you all this good energy. Going, yeah, we're ready to go. We're ready to conquer the world now because you're full of energy. But it also allows your body for cellular respiration. See, this is the interconnectedness between plants and animals.
Right.
So plants do both photosynthesis and cell respiration, but now animals also do cell respiration, and we get our energy from plants.
So what happens if that
this is
doesn't
connection here?
What happens if that doesn't work? Right? If there's not cell respiration, or if
We're dead.
okay,
We don't breathe, we're dead.
So
if animals don't breathe, they're dead.
So if we talk about evolutionary process, that had to happen from the beginning.
Yes.
So is there complexity to it? Sounds like it's pretty complex. Is there complexity to it that doesn't relate to evolution?
Well, you're talking about chemical reactions taking place.
Yep.
Very powerful reactions taking place to break bonds, and then to create bonds, and to move. You're taking sunlight energy, and you're taking water, right? And you're taking H2O, you're taking carbon dioxide for photosynthesis to produce C6H12O6. Basically, it's a glucose molecule.
That sounded really smart.
Okay. And you're producing O2. Well, you're bringing in CO2. Well, you have to have some energy to break the carbon bonds off the oxygen. And then you're bringing in H2O, which you also have to break the hydrogens and the oxygens apart.
To use it.
Yeah, to use it.
To metabolize it.
And to do all the little chemical reactions that have to take place, to go through all the little cycles.
Yep.
Okay. You may have remember Calvin's cycle, or in respiration, the Krebs cycle. And all of these cycles that have to take place, the complexity.
Right.
I mean, we don't know exactly everything it takes to know about photosynthesis, but it's so complex.
Right.
So you're telling me that out of nothing, we're going to get this complex process of photosynthesis, but works and blends so well into cellular respiration that animals and humans and plants, we all are connected and have to work together. We have this sweet symbiosis of working together. You're saying it just happened over thousands of years of mutations?
Right, and so that's my question.
They would have all died out by now.
And that's the question, right? Is there an irreducible complexity? I think it's Michael Behe. Is that
could be
the scientist that introduced that term or coined that term, irreducible complexity? I think he was primarily focused at that point on the complexity of the structure of DNA, and then also within that, the different, I think it was the flagellum motor. Right?
Yeah,
so
the little tail.
The little tail
that goes back.
Right, so it's moving proteins, if I am remembering this correctly, where they need to be to form the bonds that create the double helix that is the structure of our DNA.
Correct.
Right, and so this little flagellum that is flipping its tail and moving stuff where it needs to be, for that to have evolved, it wouldn't exist, right? Because
Correct.
To come from a simpler organism, it is as complex as it needs to be, and without that complexity, it would cease to exist, which would eliminate the possibility for life. And so this idea of irreducible complexity, it is the smallest that it can be in its complex form, and without that simple complexity, for lack of a better term, it doesn't do the job it's supposed to do. Life doesn't exist.
You know, we have our students, we have them work on different simulations, natural selection simulations. And we had this one with rabbits and wolves. We could not start the simulation. You have one rabbit on there. You couldn't start it until you added a mate. Without a mate for that rabbit, that couldn't start.
So not only did the species have to evolve, but it had to evolve at the same time as its mate evolved.
Correct. You had to have both a male and female evolving at the same time. Because if not, let's just say that evolution was somehow remotely correct. Okay. So man, let's say you were evolved, but if you had no mate, you're going to die off.
Right.
And then the whole line's done.
There'll be no junior.
Correct.
Right.
So you had to have not just another you created, because we already know you could have two males together and nothing's happening.
No babies.
Yeah, no offspring.
Right.
So there had to have been a female, and that female had to be just perfect already, but she's different than man. Males are different than females, and females are different than males. They have certain parts that are totally unique to their own. Hormones, totally unique to their own. Mm-hmm. It's inscribed into their DNA. Mm-hmm. And you're saying somehow through evolution that both the male and female were created at the same time, even though we have no documentation of that anywhere, and that they had to find themselves on this huge earth.
Yeah, it evolved like next door to each other.
Yeah, because if not, they could have been 60 miles apart and never seen each other, and guess what? Oh, they both died. They're gone.
Right.
You know, we're talking they had to be.
So you're talking probability at this point that it's increasingly unlikely for not only the complexity to evolve,
correct,
right, from simple to more complex, mm-hmm. but for the mate from simple to complex to evolve.
Exactly.
And produce offspring.
And this is why when I go to photosynthesis and cell respiration, that whole interaction, there was a designer.
Okay.
That was God. He put all this stuff together. All the random things that happen but are required, and they're just little, small, minute things, and then it all worked. You're going, wow. That couldn't have come from evolution.
Yeah. So I've heard DNA described as the most complex information storage machine known to man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That our modern day computers, the most sophisticated, even the artificial intelligence computing systems, are no match for the information storage capacity of DNA.
True, and it's not as fast as even the human brain, but
right.
Yeah.
So, and if I understand that correctly, and maybe I shouldn't say understand, but if I can grasp parts of it, computers are based on binary code,
yes.
zeros and ones.
Yeah. On and off switches.
And even the most complex computers are zeros and ones. Mm-hmm. And that DNA is a structure of 4 proteins working
basically,
together.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's not, to go from zeros and ones binary code to the 4 proteins, it's, you might think, oh, well, you just double it. Right, but it's not. It's really more exponential than just multiples, right?
Yeah.
The information storage capacity of DNA, and so, yeah. The thought is the best that we can create pales in comparison to the DNA that's within us in terms of information storage.
Yes.
And not just storing the information, but carrying out the processes.
Oh yeah.
That relate to life, to
Correct.
everything. Whether it's the and you can help me with the terms, but the things that we do that are automatic, right? Whether it's blinking, breathing,
from the subconscious, you have the 3 parts of your brain, and so it's from your brain stem, the innermost part, is where all the non-thinking things happen, like your breathing,
right.
heartbeat, all those things. That is from the brain stem part. It just sends out signals. And you don't have to think about that.
Right. And there's complexity in that.
Oh,
and then the things
definitely.
that we choose to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not even getting into, thought processes, but just, deciding to, pick up a phone.
Yeah.
Right. The level of complexity that goes from having the thought to carrying out the action.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you break that down or you reverse engineer that and you go back far enough, it seems like as that complexity starts to break down to simpler and simpler forms of life, simpler and simpler forms of cells that have grouped together, eventually life stops. You can't get all the way back, from picking up a cell phone. You can't get back to a single cell organism and say that, all along that process, reverse engineering it, life continues to exist.
No.
Right.
No. And you talk about that, and that's your nervous system. A lot of people don't understand your nervous system is not. It's not like one of these wires continuously connected.
Yeah.
They're not. There's breaks in it all the way down. And there's a chemical reaction that has to take place at every one of those little synapses and to carry the message. And it does it, boom, that fast.
Right.
So when you take a needle and put it into the palm of your hand, you go, ow.
Who does that?
That, crazy people like me to prove a point.
All right. So you
so
poke
that's going to
yourself,
send
you feel
that
the pain.
signal right to my brain right now to say, hey, that hurts.
Yeah.
Okay? Not only that, it's built in that if I did this, my hand is going to naturally start to close quick like this and move away that fast.
Right.
And that signal, and they've tested it, hadn't even gotten to the brain yet.
Oh, really?
It hadn't hit the brain yet. By the time you feel
why,
the pain,
why does that reaction happen?
because it's a built-in natural reaction to save the body.
Okay. So
It is naturally built.
self-preservation.
Self-preservation is built into this body.
Right.
So this body, and it's all about, we use a term called homeostasis. Self-preservation, balancing everything in our bodies, all of this. I honestly, when you just study the human anatomy, the human body, how you can come up with evolution, I'll never know. Because there's so many complexities. You could go for another billion years and have them all line up to produce what we have here today?
Right.
No way.
Right, and again, that's back to probability.
Exactly.
Could it ever happen that way? What's the likelihood? And I think that outside of the conversation of biblical worldview, right, just in everyday conversations in the business world, I mean, we're always thinking probability. Right? You're at an intersection and you're ready to make a left-hand turn to cross traffic, and you are establishing in your mind the probability of doing that safely.
Yes.
Right? We talk about probability all the time. We talk about reactions all the time, or we experience them, I should say.
Yes.
We experience probabilities. We experience these reactions all the time, and we're very comfortable with that. But when we get into the probability of life and the complexity of life occurring aside from an intelligent designer, we go, let's not talk about those probabilities.
Yeah. So it for me, I studied the human body. I was fortunate enough I studied comparative vertebrate anatomy. I had classmates. Hey, Kerry, come in here. We're working on a cadaver here. I came from a small college. We had not just one, we had two cadavers, man. And they had open heart surgery. So, man, we're clipping the metal there so they can open up the chest.
Oh,
man, I'm like a little kid in a candy store. Yeah, man, look at this.
That's such a weird description for that experience.
To me, this is so exciting,
right?
But when you step back and say how all of this stuff works, how that heart beats, and that's the motor that forces the blood, that transportation system of nutrients throughout our body. So I'm telling you, you eat food. Now you need to eat veggies because it's full of life-giving energy.
Can I just take a supplement? I think I'll take a supplement. Maybe a smoothie.
But it all goes down into your belly, but blood goes to your stomach area, and through the lining comes all the nutrition, and your blood is hightailing it to every part of your body, to every cell, to say, hey, you need some ATP energy? Here, boom, there you go. You need a couple of them? Boom, boom, here you go. Oh, your waste material, carbon dioxide? Oh, give it to me, and on my way back, I'll unload it, and I'll be back with some more energy for you.
Right, the complexity of that system.
All of that, the beauty of that. And it's not just going to the heart and to the lungs and into all of your extremities and coming back. I mean, going through the liver, the pancreas, and its role and to create insulin, and then the positive and the negative feedbacks that take place in your body to keep everything well maintained as a smooth running machine. God, the creator, the designer, he put all that stuff into place.
Right.
It
points to design. Right?
It does.
It points to design. Well, I wanted to end our time with a thought from Scripture, something that I think about when I consider this complexity, that it's so far beyond my understanding, and I know that you understand it far better than I do, and that there are people that have an intimate knowledge of this complexity. But when I think of it, and perhaps even for you, there's levels of it that maybe you don't understand as well, and that you're just kind of blown away.
I don't know it all, believe me.
This complexity points to a designer, and I stand in awe. And I think of Psalm 139. So I'm just going to read, starting in verse 1, what we read in Psalm 139. You have searched me, Lord, you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, when I entertain these thoughts and I get to that point where I go, wow, maybe I'll understand bits and pieces within my lifetime, but I stand in awe of a creator.
And I just want to let everyone know, none of you are accidents. Each and every one of us are fearfully and wonderfully made.
That gives me comfort. That gives me hope.
God knows everything there is about you, Christoph. He knows every cell. He knows every function that's working.
He knows that I don't need vegetables.
And he's trying to bring somebody to your path to encourage you to eat the life-giving healthiness here,
right.
But that's the beauty of it. God knows everything about you, about me, about Josh, and he loves us so much that he sent his son for us to give us a way to get through this dark and dying world that the devil is taking over from us.
Yeah. The love of our Creator, not just in the design,
yes,
but in the relationship that he wants with us.
Yes.
That's
awesome.
Great. That's a good way to end our time together.
I think
Thanks,
so.
Kerry.
You bet.